Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to break down the Carolina Panthers. Yes, that's right, the fifth video installment of a 32-part series where I'm breaking down every single NFL team. We're going in alphabetical order. We've started with Arizona and Atlanta. We've done the B teams in Buffalo and Baltimore, and today we are starting on the division champion, NFC South defending Carolina Panthers with a minus 69 in score differential last year. Somehow lost the two final games on their schedule, but fell into a divisional championship. And we break down these teams the same way every single time. You can see by the PTI rundown next to me. Good, the bad, the ugly is three big topic items I want to dive a little bit deeper into. We're going to grade the roster after that, focus on a fantasy target. And today it's one that you might be able to get really steal really late in your redraft leagues based on ESPN's ADP versus other places' ADP. And then finally, we predict every single game in the Carolina Panthers schedule. And this whole entire video, we're trying to answer one question and one question alone. Can we hit that number in the top right corner? 7.5, because that right now is the Vegas projected win total for your defending championship Carolina Panthers. Can they win 7.5 games? If they go over, that's still potentially a losing record. What they had last year at 8-9. If they go under, that's 7-10. That's regression for a team with returning the same head coach, returning the same starting quarterback, building to the defense and the offensive line pieces. This is a team that should be growing and taking steps forward. And I'm a little bit suspect myself that that number is so low because a lot of people are projecting this team to take a step backwards. Excited to break them down. Today's a two-show day, by the way. If you're watching this live, feel free to leave us a comment, dive into the Carolina Panthers alongside with me. In about an hour, we're going to be breaking down the Chicago Bears in a separate video on this same page. And, I can't wait to talk about Chicago as much as I hate them so much. But there's a lot to break down in both of these teams. Was last year both a mirage for these two teams? I'm excited to see which is true and which is false. And it starts with Carolina. Tomorrow, we'll do the other two C teams, another two-show day with Cincinnati and Cleveland. And the day after that, Detroit and Denver. So we're trying to pack them all in here, trying to get through them all because we have so many teams to dive into and not a lot of time remaining here in August. But let's start off with the good, the bad, and the ugly for the Carolina Panthers. And the good part is, yes, this team is projected to take a step backwards, but that's not how the front office attacked this offseason. They still don't know if Bryce Young is their quarterback of the future. I think they feel pretty confident in Dave Canales as their head coach of the future, and there are definitely pieces here to build around. And so Carolina decided to finally spend some money they've been waiting to spend to get rid of some bad contracts from past regimes, and they dove deep into two huge defensive signings. Jalen Phillips coming off of the edge, and then Devin Lloyd patrolling as an off-ball linebacker. Devin Lloyd from Jacksonville had a career year. If Carolina gets that production, the contract they gave him is a bargain. Jalen Phillips is one of those guys that he's always been a big threat. And sometimes there are some games where he pops off the screen every single snap. And there are some games where maybe this was just the Miami in him. It did not come to fruition and didn't meet up the potential that was there. Carolina paid a premium for both of these players because of how desperate they were on defense. Last season, for a defense that I look at to be stunning, like the players on this team, the J.C. Horns of the world, there are players that stand out. And yet, I even love the defensive coordinator, just never came together. And the counting statistics were really bad. They were 23rd in the league in points allowed per drive. They were 28th in the league at avoiding 3-and-outs. So they're just letting teams get on these drives, starting with first downs, because they both can't pressure the passer. They were 31st in pressure rate, and they were terrible against the run as well, 31st in rush efficiency. So when you can't stop the run and you can't get after the passer, it doesn't matter how good your scheme is, it's going to get picked apart, and that's what happened to Carolina last year. So they're hoping Jalen Phillips can add to that pressure rate, bring those numbers up, and Devin Lloyd can patrol the interior. And also, they're hoping for a little bit more luck, which brings me to the bad part, the probability part, because this defense last year, the defensive line, was 31st in the league in health last season. They lost so many players, so many games of guys, the Derek Browns of the world that need to be stalwarts on this defensive line. They lost to health. They also were low in offensive line health last year, which we'll get into when we break down Bryce Young. Those numbers, when it comes to probability, should come back up because I don't like to break down probability a lot on this team. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk when I do these breakdowns, I should say, I don't like to talk about probability as the end all be all. Because when we talk about Chicago in the next video, we're going to start off the top with some probability conversations of what they were able to do and how that should come back to the norm. Carolina is the same way. Yes, that health was so poor last year on both lines, on both sides of the ball. That naturally should come back up and should be more successful and should help everyone get better. However, Carolina was also 6-2, had a 6-2 winning record in field goal games, games that were decided by a field goal or less. That is naturally going to come back to the mean. It is rare to have a team with a QB as average as Bryce Young to be 6-2 in field goal games consistently, with a defense as poor as they played last year to be 6-2 in field goal games consistently. And if you even lose one of those games or you come back to 4-4 in those field goal games, the team goes from an 8-9 team to 6-10, and we're suddenly cruising into that under. So we have some parts that could get better, like the health of the lines, and then we have some parts that probably are going to get worse, like that score record in one-score games and field goal games. The other part that points to this is they have the third hardest strength of schedule, according to Vegas win totals of the opponents that they're facing. That means they're going to be in a lot tougher games, a lot closer games more often. That competition takes a step up. And then when it comes to the ugly part, Bryce Young, they have the second hardest schedule in terms of pass defenses they have to play. So Bryce Young, who played relatively easy schedule last year, now has to play he has the hardest schedule out of anyone but one in the entire NFL. And that worries me greatly because I wanted Bryce Young to succeed so bad. Carolina bet the farm on him. Chicago gave up the farm to give to Carolina. And it has not worked out to the number one overall pick. It hasn't even worked out to the starting quarterback pick. He's had some games, he's had some moments, but last season in totality, Bryce Young was 32nd in EPA per dropback. I don't know if you know this, there's only 32 NFL teams in the entire league. Surprisingly, he was even worse than that. In air yards per dropback, he was 39th. He was 37th in EPA per dropback in plays that took under 2.5 seconds. 2.5 seconds being the line of demarcation on how fast an average play is run. The play is going the way you're supposed to. First read, second read, third read, boom. Bryce Young in throws under 2.5 seconds was 37th in the NFL in EPA per dropback. All this stuff adding up, 30th in success rate, the fact that he does not throw the ball deep very well at all, this is all a consistent factor with this quarterback that has not grown to be the first overall pick that we have expected. He's not the worst pick in the world. He's not the Zach Wilsons. J.J. McCarthy's still getting benched in Minnesota. However, had Carolina gotten someone worthy of that first overall pick, and it wasn't available in that draft, they would be not only winning this division, but running away with a division that is begging for them to run away. So the ugly part of this is, can Bryce Young, he needs to take that step forward, and he has not done so in the first 3 seasons of his career. He needs to be able to hit the marks that is deserving of him to hit for Carolina to reach the height of their potential, because as we go through this roster, there is some promise here. This is a roster that I believe has been pretty decently built, based on what they've had weighing them down for this entire time. But they finally spent the money to get that defense back up to snuff. The offensive line, as we'll break down in a second, should be really good. Bryce Young needs to stand and deliver, and I'm not sure that he can. But let's get into that roster. I do want to start off with the offense as I put myself up here in this top corner. That quarterback room already, Bryce Young, Kenny Pickett behind him, and Haynes King, who, congratulations, like, he won. he won the NFL Hall of Fame game, put himself in the Hall of Fame by the way he played in that Hall of Fame game. Did pick up a little bit of an injury after that, but even with Haynes King, this is an F quarterback room. It might be the worst quarterback room in the entire NFL. And yes, I do have Arizona ahead of it because Kenny Pickett does nothing for me, and Haynes King is very limited as a passer. He could potentially beat out Kenny Pickett for that backup job and give this team a shot of life should Bryce Young struggle, but I have no faith in this quarterback room. The running back room is not much better. Chuba Hubbard might be the worst starting running back in the NFL when you rank all 32 of them. Trevor Etienne is really a nothing burger as that third string running back. And Jonathan Brooks is the world of hope for this entire team on offense this year. Finally healthy, has only played, I believe it was 11 snaps in his NFL career so far. This regime and this coaching staff drafted this kid in the second round of 2024 with the hopes that he would be the number one franchise bell cow guy. Injuries have held him back, and now he supposedly, knock on all the wood that is available to you right now, is fully healthy. However, because of the uncertainty there, this is at best a D to D plus running back room. Chuba Hubbard is just a guy. And if Jonathan Brooks can make that next step, this grading will look terrible. But so far, based on what we've seen, there's nothing to write home about here. Same thing with the pass catchers, because I love Tet McMillan. I do. Not a great advanced statistics aren't the kindest to him, but at the same time, he wasn't got a very low percentage of balls that were accurately thrown his way. He made magic, chicken salad out of chicken, you know what. And I think Ted has a true road to be a number one overall wide receiver in the NFL. The rest of this team, however, or this unit, and then when you add in the tight ends, it's awful. And I understand Brazel had the knee injury, the rookie that they drafted. They wanted him to be a spark to this offense. That's not going to happen. Xavier Legette supposedly in the best shape of his life. But again, 2024 first-round pick that has not done anything in the NFL. And I'm not a Jalen Coker believer. This wide receiver pass-catching unit is also getting a D for me, and that's just because of Tet. This is a terrible, terrible start to the offense that is around this team. And the O-line is the saving grace. But as you can see on this little depth chart write-up from our lads here, both of the tackles are beset with injuries. Aquanu missed most of the season last year, and they don't know if he's going to play this season, hence why they spent a first-round pick on Monroe Freeling. And then they also signed my left tackle, the Green Bay Packers, Rasheed Walker, to a one-year deal because they don't know who's going to be starting at tackle. They have 4 starting tackles on this team, and they spent high draft capital and high money to get these 4 starting tackles. Hopefully 2 of them are healthy for the entirety of the season because they need them to be. And then on the interior, I really like the interior of this offensive line. Luke Fortner might not be the starter there. Sam Hecht, the 5th round draft pick, might step in, although he looked, if we're going to be honest, very, very bad in that Hall of Fame game against stronger competition. Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, though, 2 very high-priced guards that should be really, really good should they stay healthy. It's an older unit, but if this unit can pull it all together and if Hecht can live up to the potential of people thought he was going to be a day 2 drafted player, this could be a very, very good offensive line. The injuries are tough, but I do love the depth. I'm giving it a B. I'm giving the offensive line a B. And hey, if you have a good offensive line, the whole entire offense can sing afterwards. The defense has been the most surprising to me because I think this defense has so many players that I love. I would love to see Derek Brown on the Green Bay Packers, for instance. I would love to see J.C. Horn, Nick Cross. I love most of the players that they have in those starting positions. And then you watch Lee Hunter in the Hall of Fame game. He looks like he should have been the first overall pick. That guy was swimming and pushing and pulling through everybody that tried to block him. They tried to double team him late. They couldn't do it. Lee Hunter looked like a man who couldn't be stopped. Will Lee, the 4th round pick at corner, did not have a great Hall of Fame game. But if they can add Lee Hunter to that defensive line, which I think should be the strength of this unit, then I'm going to love everything I see. However, just hasn't performed up to snuff, especially on the interior. Most of that has been by injury. But if they can get these guys to play to what they're paying them to play, then this could be absolutely a B to B plus interior D line. And then off the edges, Jalen Phillips should be able to run town here. This is what he has wanted since he's been drafted. This is his unit. He is going to get all of the blitzes, all of the packages are going to be built so this man can get a one-on-one on the edge and go to absolute work. And then Devin Lloyd covering everything from behind. Again, if Carolina can get last season's Jacksonville's version of Devin Lloyd, this is a wonderful linebacking core. But we have not seen it happen quite yet. So again, I'm going to give it probably a C plus because of the free agents that they signed and how much they needed those 2 players. But if that depth doesn't pay off, then it won't work out at all. And I love the defensive backs. I do. There are stats to point why I should not love these defensive backs, but I think J.C. Horn is an absolute shutdown corner. I love the safeties that they have. I'm all in on Mike Jackson as my second cornerback and then throw Will Lee in there if he can live up to that day two prospect. I think there's a chance that this defensive back core, while it might be the worst unit on this defense so far, I think it's really, really high. If anything, I think this defense makes a huge leap. And they were, again, I gave you the numbers. They were bottom 20s in a bunch of statistics last year. If that is mostly based on injury and we get Phillips and Lloyd to live up to the potential of how much money they're paying them, I think this defense could make the biggest leap out of any defense from worst to even in the middle of what this team can do this season. I'm really excited about this unit. The offense, not so much. And the schedule, we'll get to in a second. It's also not very good for Carolina. But before we get there, we have to break down the fantasy target of the Carolina Panthers that I am attacking in each and every draft. I do love Tet McMillan. However, he's going to be one of the high-priced wide receivers out there. I'm not going to try and convince you to draft a Bryce Young, and I'm definitely not going to tell you to draft Chuba Hubbard. But if you've been following me long enough in the So You Think You Can Tout world, you know my fantasy target is the man, Jonathan Brooks. And the thing that scares me is, or should scare you as you're drafting Jonathan Brooks, is yes, the injuries are there. If he is fully healthy, however, there is no doubt in my mind that he will be the bell cow back in Carolina. This will not be a 50-50 split between Chuba and Brooks because, again, this same regime drafted this man to be the bell cow back, and they have been waiting with bated breath for him to be the number one overall guy when he is healthy. If he enters this season healthy, he is going to take over this workload and be a 70% to 30% carry rate for this team. Would it be a good team? I mean, it was 10th in the league last year in yards before contact, even with all those injuries along the offensive line. So Brooks will have room to run. And if you're worried about Chuba, I have the number written down. Out of 52 running backs that qualified, Chuba was 44th in EPA added per touch. He's just a guy. And Jonathan Brooks was never drafted to be just a guy. And the craziest part about Brooks to me, I've been hitting him at a bunch of underdog drafts, the most best ball drafts I've done in my life. He probably is the highest exposure running back I have out of any of them, probably him and Marshawn Lloyd, which says a lot about my hopes in best ball. But in underdog, he's coming off as the RB30. I think it's 87th overall. So you have to look at him relatively early in the draft, not obviously one of your first picks, but when you get there and you start building the teams out, you might need a third running back. That's when Brooks is going off the board. If you're in a redraft league, say you're playing on ESPN or on Sleeper or on Yahoo, I checked the ESPN ADP on Jonathan Brooks today. Again, RB30 and 87th overall on underdog. He's even higher in high stakes league like the FFPC. On ESPN, he's coming off as the RB37, and that's 129th overall. So obviously ESPN is the casual league, the work league, the redraft league. But if you have one of those coming up in your family leagues, that guy's a steal at that price for what he can potentially become. And that's the guy I'm going for. Now, if you're in a guillotine league, which again, we're going to talk a lot about guillotine leagues with Peter Ovazet in the coming weeks here as our guillotine show will be launching very soon. That is a league where you have the lowest score of the week out of the whole league. You're cut, you're gone, your season's over. That's something I'm probably avoiding all Carolina Panthers in that league, even the Jonathan Brooks of the world, because it might take week 1, 2, or 3 to get him going to the full potential. They might want to start him off with his training wheels and let Chuba take the workload early and then give it over to him in week 4, 5, and 6. So if he becomes available in your guillotine league, or if you want to trade for him in some type of a dynasty league, then I would hammer it. However, I would not be looking to draft him or really any Carolina Panther on my guillotine team because you cannot suffer the fate of being the 18th out of 18 teams in week 1, and Jonathan Brooks is your RB1, could make you do that. But we are here to do the one final thing, the thing I want to do every single time, and that is break down the schedule of the Carolina Panthers. We've done this with every team so far, and I think I've given out 3 overs and 1 under. And I'm hoping to get to it where it's 16 and 16, but sometimes these numbers are a little bit off. And 7.5, as you can see in the top right corner, is Carolina's win total. Can they win more or less than 7.5 games? Some of the results here have already been figured out from past videos. I had them beating Atlanta in week 2, and then in week 11 against Baltimore, because they had Baltimore's coming off of a short week road game, coming off playing, I believe, the Monday night the week before. Carolina with that rest advantage in Baltimore. Go through that schedule, man. Weeks 4 through 12 in Baltimore is going to be a tough stretch. I have Carolina stealing a W there and then losing that final game at Atlanta. So again, some of these can change as we go through it. We just broke down the Panthers. I might have different thoughts than what I had a few days ago, but if that happens, I will go back and make those changes on the other teams, Atlanta and Baltimore. But so far, at least in the beginning, I'm not looking to change too much, because I was looking up Bryce Young's records against his divisional teams, because he's played a few seasons now and he has been the starter with Andy Dalton back and forth. But he is building up a reputation against some of his divisional opponents. And surprisingly, he's 1-5 against New Orleans. He is also 1-5 against Tampa. That's terrible. We know that. We can tell that. However, against Atlanta, he's 4-1. I don't know what it is about Bryce. He loves playing specifically in Atlanta. He puts up some of the best numbers of his career in Atlanta, and they come away with wins. So I'm not going to change week 2. However, week 1, not to spoil what we're talking about Chicago in a few minutes here, but that's going to be a loss against the Chicago Bears. So I think we're splitting the first 2 for Carolina, just like this win total expects you to do. Is it's 7.5. It's going to be right in the middle. Win half the games, lose half the games, but can we hit that over? Oh, I do want to say at the very bottom there, the DraftKings line right now, the over is plus money. So people are expecting this team to be 7-10 or worse, which again would be a step back from what they were last year, a division winner. For them to repeat as division winners, that's plus 310. That means every $100 you bet, you're winning 310 in profit. To just make the playoffs, it's plus 220. So people do not expect this team to be very good. They weren't very good last year. However, I have them going 2-1 because I think the beginning of this schedule really favors Cleveland. Really favors Carolina, and I don't think Cleveland's going to be very good, even though they should have an extremely good defense, even after losing Myles Garrett. However, Detroit on Sunday night, right before the bye week, we're 2-2. This is what we've expected here. Carolina is a mid-tier team. They've been middle of the road the entire time. I think they would be perfectly content with a 2-2 record, 1-0 against the division at the bye week. It is a very early bye week, I do want to say, because as you look at the future here, you look at the rest of this schedule, if you want to peek ahead to weeks 14 through 18, 4 of those final 5 games are at home, which is great for any team. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your home field advantage is, to have 4 of the final 5 games at home, and only 2 of them against your division also at home. Fantastic. But you know what that means? They pump those road games early. Week 10 through 13, and before that, week 6 through 9 are 2 chapters in Carolina's season that will define everything. This week 6 through 9 is terribly difficult. Philadelphia is going to be an absolute buzzsaw of a team, and it doesn't matter how good you are, they're going to punch everyone in the mouth. Will they win those games? I don't know, but it's going to be extremely physical, and it's going to be in Philadelphia. And then you have to come home, play your division rival Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who arguably have the best team roster-wise in the division. At Green Bay on a short week Thursday, I love my Packers, but they're a better team than Carolina and a tough offense to play. And then you come home to Denver, who could be the best defense in the entire NFL. That 4-game stretch, to me, will define Carolina's season. Because if they can steal some victories here, as you can see, they have huge rest advantages in 2 of arguably the toughest games of those 4. If they can use that to their advantage and steal a few victories, this is a playoff team. This is not a playoff team. This is a division winning team. If they can go 2-2 into the bye and then come out of that week 9 with even a 4-4 record, this is a team that could be absolutely feisty. Because when you get to week 10 at New Orleans, week 11, I already gave them the win at Baltimore, but week 12, week 13, 3 of those 4 games on the road, Minnesota, a short week road game with a rest disadvantage on top of it, it's going to get tough. And if they can hit week 14 on a even middle tier ground, the benefits of being at home against an easier part of the schedule could really, really help them. So I say all that to say, it's tough for me with what we've seen out of Bryce Young to look at this with a glass half full. And it's tough for me to look at week 6 through 9, where I believe Carolina will be underdogs in every single one of those games. And even with rest advantages on their side, even with Tampa Bay not being as strong as I don't think Tampa Bay is as strong as people believe they are this year. I still don't have faith that Bryce Young will be able to figure out the defenses of Philadelphia, of Tampa, of Denver, and be able to score enough to keep up with Green Bay. So I'm giving at least one win to the Carolina Panthers based on that mini bye week before the Denver game in Carolina. Could Bo Nix still be healthy at that point? There could be things going wrong Denver's way. I think Denver's defense is going to be wonderful, but maybe Carolina wins a 9-6 game of some sort. But this is still a tough stretch for a team that needs to go over 7.5 to have only 3 wins heading into week 10. At New Orleans and then hosting Baltimore again. Bryce Young 1-5 versus the New Orleans Saints. We're going to give them a loss there. And then at Tampa Bay on Monday, it just seems to me that this team, this division loves to split reps with each other. So I already have them losing to Tampa Bay in one game. We're beating Tampa Bay there. And then Minnesota, I think Carolina is a better team than Minnesota. Minnesota named Kyler Murray their starting quarterback today. I understand Minnesota had a winning record last year, even with J.J. McCarthy, some of the worst quarterback play in the league. I still am out on the Minnesota Vikings this season. However, because of the rest disadvantage, the short week road game, we're getting a loss right there. But we're battling back. We got a few wins. We got 3 of the last 5 weeks. Carolina's pulled away a victory. They have 5 wins total, hoping to get to 8 as we hit the final stretch of this season. And again, I'm splitting everything when it comes to the division. So that's 6 W's. Cincinnati is a loss. Even at home, Cincinnati is a loss. Who knows? Joe Burrow might be on his 7th injury by then, but Cincinnati is a loss. And then I already have Atlanta coming in on the loss there. Last game of the season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We have them beating Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh and Heinz Field because I don't believe in the last ride of Aaron Rodgers. Seattle is a much better team than Carolina, and they have 2-day rest advantage in that game. And then finally, with all on the line, a 7-9 team heads home to host the Atlanta Falcons, and Carolina ends 2 seasons in a row, losing the last 2 games on their schedule. However, this one likely keeps them out of the division crown. So that is a 7-10 team for me. And again, a couple of those games, like the Denver game, the Baltimore game, those are gifts based on the schedule. And then that's why I'm giving those W's. Baltimore and Denver clearly better rosters than Carolina. So even with those gifts, those upsets, I still can only get to 7 wins. And I think this could be even lower. Yeah, I think this could be even lower. It's minus 136 to the under 7.5. I think an under 6.5 is definitely in play. However, if you believe Carolina is this poor of a team, I would not bet their under until that bye week, because I think at Atlanta and at Cleveland, even though they're both on the road, even Chicago early, who knows? Chicago loves to play close games. I think Carolina could have a good record at the bye, a 500 record at the bye. And if you're only looking at 7.5 and they're 2-2 in week 4, then that under is going to be a lot more healthy bet wise towards you, because the middle and end of this schedule it's a tough one. And I don't believe Carolina has what it takes to defeat it. I really don't. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I want Carolina it's so much better. The NFL is so much better when Carolina has a good team. And I don't think they do. Man, I hope Canales doesn't get fired because of this. But that is the end of the breakdown of the Carolina Panthers. In about a half hour, we're going to be going live with the Chicago Bears. If you're watching this late, give me a like, give me a subscribe. We are going to be live almost every single evening, breaking down all 32 teams right before kickoff here, going through it just like I did here with the games on the schedule. And if you're watching live, man, leave a comment, get the conversation going. Love to answer some questions and build these things as we go. But we will see you in a half hour with the Chicago Bears, and hopefully I'm wrong about the Carolina Panthers. I don't think I am, though. I don't think I am.